But we're going to begin tonight with a dramatic day in the Senate impeachment trial. The House managers prosecuting President Trump spent their second day of arguments laying out their case for Article 1 and how they say the president abused his power. The president is taunting Democrats for refusing to make a deal, allowing him to call witnesses in exchange for letting them call his top aides. This is a new poll suggests a majority of Americans from both parties want to hear that new testimony. Tonight, we're learning when the president's lawyers could start making their own arguments. And it can't come soon enough for the president, who has spent his time launching an escalating series of attacks on Twitter.
Publicly, he appears to be unraveling over the fact that he is facing impeachment for the third time. Yes, you heard that right, the third time. Impeachment is no longer a theoretical threat. It is actively happening. There is a live resolution currently in the House of Representatives outlining 7 articles that detail Trump's alleged high crimes and misdemeanors. Democrats are aggressively pushing for impeachment proceedings over Trump's actions in Venezuela. In a surprising move, a House Democrat even forced an unexpected impeachment vote on the House floor, catching many by surprise. Trump has also been warning his supporters that if Democrats regain control of the House, they will undoubtedly move to impeach him again. It is clear that Trump is using this situation to rally his base and raise funds, underscoring just how seriously he views the threat. After all, Trump does not typically panic unless he believes there is a genuine danger to his hold on power. A third impeachment could be devastating to his already fragile political legacy and his grip on authority. Back in April 2025, a House member stated, "The House has just passed a serious resolution known as H.R. 353, which officially impeaches Donald Trump for high crimes and misdemeanors. This is not a symbolic gesture. It is a comprehensive resolution containing 7 articles that lay out specific accusations, including obstruction of justice, violations of due process, overstepping Congress's authority over appropriations, abuse of trade powers, and international aggression."
We have breaking news tonight, a deeply divided moment playing out in American history as we come on the air. President Trump has just been impeached on both Article 1, abuse of power, and on Article 2, obstruction of Congress. The votes down party lines as predicted. And all day long here, we've been watching the short bursts of anger, the closing arguments from both sides. Democrats arguing the evidence was clear, arguing the president used the power of his office for personal and political gain with this election coming.
There are numerous serious charges lined up, including violations of First Amendment rights, the creation of an unlawful office, bribery, corruption, and tyranny. All 7 articles are thoroughly documented and are currently before the House. The resolution asserts that Trump is unfit to govern and poses a significant threat to the Constitution if he is allowed to remain in power. This is not a theoretical exercise. A complete impeachment framework is already in place and can be activated whenever House leadership determines the timing is right. Recent developments, particularly Trump's military actions in Venezuela, are pushing Democrats closer to formally advancing impeachment proceedings. In Venezuela, Trump ordered a military strike that reportedly bombed Caracas, seized President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, and took control of Venezuelan oil assets, effectively launching an attack on a sovereign nation without congressional authorization. The situation increasingly resembles an illegal invasion or coup, and it has reignited calls for impeachment. Representative April M. Delaney is urging the Democratic caucus to move forward with impeachment immediately. California State Senator Scott Wiener, who is running for Congress, described the actions as an illegal invasion and coup that violate both constitutional and international law, suggesting Trump acted to benefit American oil executives. Meanwhile, Representative Dan Goldman has stated that Trump's actions are illegal, unconstitutional, and embolden authoritarian leaders around the world. It is a rapidly escalating situation. Prominent Democrats are now directly linking Trump's actions in Venezuela to the ongoing impeachment discussions, arguing that this conduct is precisely the type that warrants formal impeachment proceedings. This is not merely dissent from a handful of backbenchers. Key figures within the party are making forceful and consequential statements. While Democratic leadership appears cautious, concerned about the political risks of impeachment while remaining in the minority. Individual members are aggressively pressing the issue. Just recently, an unexpected moment unfolded on the House floor, when one rogue Democrat unexpectedly forced an impeachment vote on the House floor, requiring everyone to go on record. That moment was a clear sign of the growing pressure within Democratic ranks. Some members are no longer willing to wait for approval from party leadership and are instead taking matters into their own hands by reviving debate around the existing articles of impeachment. Each time someone stands up to call for impeachment or forces a vote, the idea becomes more normalized and more accepted within the political landscape. And there's no denying the momentum this creates. Trump is clearly feeling the pressure. He has been warning his supporters that if Democrats regain control of the House, another impeachment effort is inevitable. Almost comically, he has turned the threat of a third impeachment into a fundraising tool. He is using it to rally his base and make it a central part of his political messaging. It's a calculated move, one that allows him to portray himself as the underdog in a deeply polarized political battle. This may be framed as a partisan power play, but let's not kid ourselves. There is genuine concern behind it. A third impeachment would be unprecedented and would cement Trump's legacy as potentially the most lawless president in modern American history. Even if the Senate ultimately refuses to convict, and realistically it probably would, the impeachment process itself would dominate the political landscape. It would expose even more of Trump's questionable conduct and further complicate his ability to govern effectively. That puts Trump in a difficult position. He needs to keep talking about impeachment to energize his supporters, but every time he does, he also reinforces the very real possibility that it could happen. The more he raises the issue, the more legitimate and normalized it becomes. So let's take a closer look at why this situation is becoming increasingly dangerous for Trump. At the center of this controversy is an impeachment resolution currently sitting in the House of Representatives. It was introduced in April 2025, and it is not a vague or symbolic document. It is a detailed legal resolution containing 7 specific articles of impeachment, each outlining a different category of alleged high crimes and misdemeanors. Taken together, these articles paint a picture of a president who has repeatedly abused his authority, violated the Constitution, and prioritized personal and political interests over those of the nation. Article 1 focuses on obstruction of justice and violations of due process. It details Trump's alleged efforts to interfere with investigations, intimidate witnesses, and misuse presidential authority to block congressional oversight. While these accusations echo those from his first impeachment related to Ukraine, they also include new examples from his second term. Article 2 addresses the usurpation of Congress's power over federal spending. It accuses Trump of spending funds without congressional approval, withholding money that Congress had lawfully authorized, and treating the federal budget as a personal tool. The Constitution clearly grants Congress control over appropriations, yet Trump is alleged to have repeatedly ignored that limitation. Article 3 deals with the abuse of trade powers and international aggression, with Venezuela playing a central role. This article alleges that Trump has used trade policy and military force to advance personal and political goals rather than legitimate national security interests. It accuses him of initiating trade wars for political leverage, imposing tariffs as punishment, and engaging in military action without congressional authorization. This is where the Venezuela operation becomes especially relevant. According to critics, Trump ordered a military strike on Caracas, authorized the seizure of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, and took control of Venezuelan oil assets, all without approval from Congress. This type of unilateral military action is exactly what Article 3 addresses. When Democrats call for impeachment over Venezuela, they are effectively saying the behavior we warned about is happening right now. Article 4 addresses violations of First Amendment rights, focusing on Trump's repeated attacks on free speech and the press. Article 5 centers on the creation of unlawful offices. This article points to Trump's use of acting officials who bypass Senate confirmation and remain in power far longer than legally permitted. It also ties into instances where Trump-appointed prosecutors were later disqualified by judges, reinforcing concerns that he has created pseudo-legal positions filled with loyalists willing to act at his direction. Article 6 examines allegations of bribery and corruption. It accuses Trump of using the presidency to financially benefit himself and his family, including claims that he accepted benefits from foreign governments and businesses in exchange for favorable treatment. The article portrays the presidency as being exploited as a vehicle for personal enrichment. Article 7 is perhaps the most sweeping. It accuses Trump of tyranny, arguing that he has repeatedly ignored constitutional limits, undermined the separation of powers, and used federal authority as a weapon against political opponents. The article asserts that Trump has behaved as though he is above the law, rejecting any meaningful constraints on his power. The resolution concludes by declaring Trump unfit to govern and warning that he would remain a threat to the Constitution if allowed to stay in office. This is not mild language. It is a declaration that his conduct represents a fundamental danger to democratic governance. As it stands, all 7 articles are complete, documented, and waiting in the House. Then came Venezuela. Trump's decision to launch military strikes in Venezuela transformed the resolution from something largely symbolic into something urgently relevant. What once seemed hypothetical suddenly became tangible. Trump authorized U.S. military forces to strike targets in Caracas, deployed troops, and ordered the capture of a foreign head of state, without a declaration of war, without congressional authorization, and without a credible national security justification. Trump claimed the operation was about combating gang activity and drug trafficking, but critics quickly questioned the timing and motive. Many argued it appeared designed to benefit American oil interests by gaining access to Venezuela's vast reserves. Scott Wiener described the operation as an illegal invasion and a coup conducted for the benefit of oil executives. If military force was used to advance private business interests, that constitutes corruption and abuse of power, precisely what Article 3 alleges. Democrats responded swiftly. Representative April M. Delaney called for immediate consideration of impeachment proceedings. Representative Dan Goldman argued that Trump's actions were unconstitutional and illegal, warning that they emboldened dictators worldwide by demonstrating that the U.S. president can violate international law without consequences. Goldman emphasized that invading a country and kidnapping its leaders without oversight sets a dangerous precedent. Wiener echoed those concerns, calling the operation a violation of both constitutional and international law and labeling it an impeachable offense. Together, these Democrats argue that Venezuela is not an isolated incident, but evidence of Trump's broader contempt for legal and constitutional constraints. Still, there is a political reality. House Democrats are currently in the minority and lack the votes to successfully pass articles of impeachment. Leadership fears that pushing impeachment now could backfire, energizing Trump's base and framing the effort as a partisan stunt ahead of the midterms. However, pressure inside the Democratic caucus is growing. A rogue House member has already forced an unexpected impeachment vote, signaling frustration with leadership's cautious approach. Each time this happens, impeachment becomes more normalized and leadership's ability to suppress the issue weakens. If more members demand votes, leaders may be forced to act or risk appearing complicit. The Venezuela operation intensifies that pressure. It is recent, dramatic, and easy for voters to understand. Trump ordered military action without congressional approval. No complex legal theory required. Democrats can now point to a clear, concrete example of constitutional overreach and argue that waiting is no longer acceptable. Trump is clearly aware of the growing threat. He has taken to Truth Social and campaign rallies to warn supporters that Democrats will impeach him again if they regain control of the House. He frames this as a partisan witch hunt, but his fixation on impeachment suggests genuine concern. If he truly believed it was meaningless, he would ignore it. Instead, he has made it central to his messaging, using it to raise money and mobilize his base. Ironically, This constant focus may increase the likelihood of impeachment. Each warning reminds the public of his prior impeachments and keeps the issue alive. While it energizes his supporters, it also normalizes the idea that impeachment is a recurring response to his presidency. Beyond Venezuela, Trump is facing contempt proceedings related to deportation flights, disqualification of prosecutors he appointed, legal challenges across multiple jurisdictions, and ongoing clashes with the judiciary. Each controversy reinforces a broader narrative of a president who consistently tests and often exceeds constitutional limits. Ultimately, this debate is about more than Trump. It is about whether constitutional checks and balances still function. Impeachment exists precisely to address abuses of power. If Congress refuses to act when those abuses occur, the power itself becomes meaningless. Looking ahead, the midterms will be decisive. If Democrats regain the House, impeachment shifts from a possibility to a probability. Even if they do not, internal pressure and continued presidential overreach ensure that impeachment will remain a central issue. Trump understands this. That is why he is anxious. Impeachment is no longer theoretical. It is real, prepared, and waiting. All it needs is the political moment to become reality. And judging by the trajectory of events, that moment may not be far off.